Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is March 27th, and you are listening and watching the Daily AI Show live. And today we are going to be talking about all the AI news from the last 7 days. We've got Jumi, Beth, Andy, and I'm Brian. And this is what we do every Wednesday. If you haven't joined us before, on Wednesdays, we look back at the last 7 days. We all individually sort of do some research, come up with the topics we think, the news stories that we think are interesting. Some of them are huge news stories. Some of them are really, really tiny niche. And we learn along the way with you because we don't usually talk about the topics before we go live. So we're learning along with you guys. And with that, we're going to kind of jump in and have a great discussion for the next 30 or so minutes. And I thought maybe a bigger topic, one that we can kind of pick up on because we didn't get a chance to talk about it on yesterday's show, where we were sort of doing a deep dive into Sam Altman's interview on Lex Fridman's podcast. We talked about a lot of OpenAI initiatives, but one that was sort of not missing, we just literally didn't have time to get to it. And we were fearful it would take too long. Is talking about Sora. Now, Sora is the video creator, text to video creator that sort of made some splash maybe a month or so ago at this point, maybe more. We don't have public access to it at this point. But what is in the news and what's different about the last 7 days is it's come out that Sam Altman, OpenAI, have been making the rounds in Hollywood, and that they are, trying to get in good with the Hollywood, creators, if you will. And this is different and interesting because unlike in the past where maybe ChatGPT just hit, and Beth, you were talking about this, where it just hits and then everybody scrambles to figure it out. Sora is not publicly available. They have some beta testers. They have some people who are there. We've seen some videos come out from Shy Kids, the one with the, if you haven't seen it, where the guy has the balloon head. And they put out a blog article about it. OpenAI did, and they're talking about, they have a couple quotes in here from directors. So Sora is at its most powerful when you're not replicating the old, but bringing to life new and impossible ideas we would otherwise never had the opportunity to see. That's interesting because they're telling you, and this is what I think, was it the Neuron? They're saying basically as if to say, see, we're helping you. We're not replacing you. And this blog article definitely has a tone of that. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Pretty interesting to hear that they're taking sort of this media approach. They're trying to get in and show Hollywood what Sora can do before the vast majority have ever seen it, touched it, can use it, or anything like that.
Yeah, I think I think it's great that they released some content that was created by the small cluster test group that they released Sora to. I think that helps us understand what you can output from Sora. Having these names or these creators attached to that process, it goes to what you're saying, Brian, is that it is it's a getting your toe in the water, and then now they're ready to get your leg in the water, and then hopefully you can just plunge in the rest of the way. So it's always nice to see examples. I personally want to see more and just have access. I take into account what Altman said about Sora specifically in his interview with Lex. Is I understand that there is some apprehension there, and they want to, they want to, as leadership in the space, they want to help people ease into it and acclimatize and adapt to it. So I do appreciate that, but I want it now. Let me play with it, please. But I think they're taking a safer approach to release. And yes, I think a lot of it has to deal with getting people's adoption or at least acceptance that, yes, this is just a new tool. This is your new, editor. This is your new Photoshop. These are your new creation tools, and you can see how good they can be. as much as I love the narrative of the balloon, the airhead guy, I actually was more impressed with, not necessarily technically wise, but um, story wise, or I guess genre wise, with the National Geographic documentary one where they were merging the two animals together. Because what I really liked about that one was it one, it gave you those traditional formats and then juxtaposed that to like fantasy, you know,
Yeah.
like, hey, these are the tools that will help you create the fantastical, imagery and the fantastical ideas in, in video format. And I think that spoke to more of the, hey, um, let's do crazy things with it. Let's
Right.
all the stuff that we couldn't do before. I think
Right.
animation will take advantage of Sora like right off the bat, to run with it, because you can, apply your style, you know. It's like, oh, hey, I make these kinds of animations. I want to apply that to, fantastical things that takes forever for me to do, but now I can do it. I can do it quicker, or I can handle that one piece of things that nobody wants to handle.
Yeah.
Like okay, I want to get this kind of motion and this kind of item on there, but I don't. That's going to take us months to do. Well,
Right.
we'll make that an AI piece, and then we'll just blend it into the everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
So-
huge for stuff like B-roll. I want to move on to other topics too, but like, unless anybody else has something on Sora, but obviously making B-roll being a marketing campaign. They showed one where it was just sort of doing a circle around. I think it said salt water, a salt soda or something is what the can
Right.
said. But regardless, it was like you could see it was maybe used for a commercial. I would think anything like your perfume commercials that are very out there. They're not like they're trying to get you to, feel the essence of a perfume because you can't smell it through the TV. So we always know like perfume commercials are kind of like, whatever it is, and then they say the name in French or whatever, and I think like any of those commercials where you're trying to put 3 or 4 different shots and create a mood, I could see where Sora would be a huge efficiency tool for these design, companies over trying to create them in real world or through traditional more traditional computer graphics, that type of level or something like that. So yeah, it's really interesting. Any other topics or any other not topics? I'm not wrapping it up. Anything else in Sora before we go?
I think we can't minimize how much Sora costs to run right now, and that they are moving toward people who have budgets, right? Like I'm not sure that I saw it as any other play other than like, wow, this might not be consumer priced when we start. And so how do we go to the professionals who might have budgets to be able to use it?
Good point.
The one point I wanted to make was when you saw the balloon head guy, I think the big thing for me is when the technology becomes seamlessly connected with the story itself, where people don't think about the tech anymore, that's when it's going to become amazing. Because no one right now, when you talk about films and you watch your movies, no one talks about, hey, what kind of camera that is, what kind of lighting that is. Oh, what amazing sound that is. Like that stuff's in the background. So if you can make these things become to the point where the tech is in the background and the story is in the foreground, that's what's most important. And like a lot of the filmmaker communities that I'm in, they're all saying about, hey, it's so good for B-roll. And I would agree. A lot of them are putting their head in the sand and they don't believe in like that kind of stuff. But I do think when you can start, telling a cohesive story for very long periods of time, I think the new level of creativity will be there and opens it up to more people who may not have the technical gear or the technical know-how of how to create scenes, movies, and all those, different camera angles. They can just take their vision and put it directly into something that'll tell the story for them.
I love that. Yeah. Lower that barrier, get more people in there to, churn up their creative juices and things like that.
You're gonna get a
There's
lot
some-
more shitty movies though. That's
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
100,000
Hey,
more
look,
times.
everyone's got to start from somewhere, and they'll evolve as soon as they find that spark, that spark of creativity that I really enjoy this. Then they'll naturally just, improve upon that. And remember, it's art, so there's eye of the beholder and all that kind of stuff. Not so much talking about the commercialization of the technology, but more of it being a contributing factor to the overall expansion and exploration of art and creativity.
All right, let's move on because I know there's probably other news topics. We can talk about Sora we can have a whole show about that. But let's move on. Andy, I would love to hear what you always have some really amazing, interesting news stories. So what did you find interesting over the last 7 days in the news?
Well, first, character AI, which is the number 3 most used platform out there. It's hugely popular. It's where you can create your own character chatbot. Up to this point, it has been just text interactions. Well, they've added voice interactions.
Oh, really?
And not only that, they have a whole bunch of voices in a library that you can select to add to your character. And you can, of course, give that character knowledge, and you can give it some prompting and training so it has chat GPT-like capabilities in some respects. And you can also now create your own voices. And so you can create a voice and add that to your character. So that leads to the point where you might have avatars that have large language model capabilities and, configurable voices. And you can also share voices. It's like a GPT store in a way. You create a great voice, and you can then share that with others, and you can use their tools to generate voices for all those characters. I thought that was very interesting. A couple of technical things I have here. One is, Rabbit R1, the large action model, sort of that device that will allow you to teach it, have it learn things. So you ask it to learn things that you're doing with your computer, or just generally have it available as this device. It's starting to ship next week. So I'm on the list somewhere in there. There's thousands and thousands, I'm sure. So sometime I'll be able to show you that. But the big news is that there's an open source version of this, which is incredibly impressive. So it's called Open Interpreter 01 operating system. And there's an incredible video that I encourage you to see. I can actually put the link to that video. It's on X. But if you just go to Open Interpreter on X and you see their announcement about Open 01 Lite, or Open Interpreter 01 Lite, just an amazing video of how that small device, just basically the communication tool into your own computer, your own laptop, your own desktop, can do extraordinary things. So that's, I think, a very big thing that probably won't rise just because it's in the open source world. It's not going to rise to the commercial visibility that other things do, but I think it's really impressive. Okay, just a couple other little ditties. MIT researchers have developed a new method, a novel method that accelerates the pace at which diffusion models such as Stable Diffusion and DALL-E 3 can generate their images by 30 times. So one of the problems with diffusion models is they have to go through this series of sequential iterations to progressively get to less and less noise in the image until they develop an image that matches the training sets and it looks realistic. Well, what they did is they took an approach that marries the principles of generative adversarial networks, two models working back and forth to evaluate that. And, they trained a distillation of that. Using that process, they distill an existing diffusion model's capabilities into a very, very much faster and direct result. So the key researcher on this said, we used the key insight was we guide the improvement of the new model, this little small model that's going to be really fast, but just as good as the big model, using two diffusion models working together to train it and distill the knowledge of the original complex model into a simpler, faster one. And so just like all the different edges of AI technology are being advanced to improve the speed, the accuracy, and the effectiveness of all of these things. And there's so many quarters by which you can get to improvements. This is an amazing one. It's called distribution matching distillation, distilling a large model down to a much faster and more rapid one that's just as proficient. And that's just out of MIT.
So,
And
Andy,
that
are you
is-
saying that that we are getting 30 times faster, high quality images through the power of friendship?
In a way, that's right. But not only that, but the sort of the convolution of a large model. So convolution is a term of art in AI, which takes an image and breaks it down into smaller blocks and reduces them for more rapid computation, and then develops it that way. So the convolutional neural network concept here is like this. This distillation process is like taking using models, a couple of different models, to train a new model based on an existing complex model. So it's this distillation or convolution of a very sophisticated model. Okay, quickly, stability AI. Stability is stable diffusion. And there was news this past week about Emad Mostak leaving Stability AI. Stability AI is also an open source platform, and Stable Diffusion is one of the best image generation models out there. Well, they just launched a new large language model, but it's not very large. It's only 3 billion parameters, but it's tailored for code generation and software engineering. And it matches the capabilities of larger coding models like CodeLlama and DeepSeek Coder Instruct, but it's small enough at 3 billion parameters to run on a MacBook Air. So you can do coding on a MacBook Air now with just as good a coding assistant as you might get from one of the larger coding assistants. And
Nice.
that is all.
Nice. Well, in keeping with theme with the power of friendship, I got to call a couple of small ones. Saw a new paper released by MIT about how engineers have given robots a little bit of common sense. So robots are great at mimicry, but their paper highlights the fact that while they can perform a task and learn a task really easily, being able to adapt when something messes with that task completion, that's a little harder. So what they've done is they've paired an LLM with the robotics task completion. So if a robot runs into an issue where they can't complete their task, such as clean the surface of a table or something like that, then they can fall back on consulting their LLM buddy saying, hey, I can't do this. What can I do? What's the alternate that I can do? And then the LLM can come back and say, oh, try this instead. And then it'll take that. It's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And they'll go and adjust or adapt their task. So by working together, they're able to increase those capabilities. So I thought that was a fun bit of news there. There is some other additional information about different APIs that are coming out. Fireworks AI released or open sourced an API that allows or makes it easier for generative AI for all developers. So you can use these APIs or use this API to access generative AI models and things like that, which could be done, but they're just streamlining the process. And kind of speaking to that is, I like some of the Adobe news that came out. So not to take it all the way back to Sora or anything like that, but Adobe's Firefly, they released something called Firefly Services, which is a bunch of generative AI and creative APIs. So you can automate on the creative side of things, accessing all of the Adobe things. And they created also another service called Gen Studio, which is really supposed to help on the generative AI side of things for ad creation, right? To help stay on story and, you know, keep the voice and all those kinds of things. But I really like that idea of giving us more APIs to automate more of our process in the background. And Brian, I know you and I talk about this all the time. So if I can automate more of my life, I am a happy person. So that's what I got.
Hey,
Definitely on that
StreamYard,
side.
it would be super helpful if you would let us just grab stuff from you, because everything else can be automated. Call us.
We know you're listening, StreamYard. Hey, listen, we talked about transcripts enough, and it showed up. So maybe we're having a bit of an impact. Okay, what else, Beth? I feel like you haven't had an opportunity here. What do you have to share this week?
Well, so two things, but I want to highlight again what Andy said about Stability AI. Sorry, about the diffusion model, the new method for the diffusion model. Almost all of the image generators we typically use a diffusion model. Midjourney, Stability AI, and like things like Scenario and Leonardo are built on top of Stability, right? So it's a direct play for that. The CEO of Stability AI stepped down, and there were a bunch of people saying, hey, what's going on? And he clarified that he still owns controlling shares. So like he's not out. He still has a lot of influence, and he had a goal that he thought could be met better with him stepping away or stepping out of that leadership role. There is a new chip company in town, and I feel like we want, you know, like the Western music, like woo, wah. Yeah, sorry, that may not have translated, but we've talked a little bit about the supply chain for chips. I'm sure we're actually going to do a show about that, because it's kind of a very interesting story. But Google, Intel, Qualcomm, and ARM joined forces to basically challenge NVIDIA's chip dominance. They are the UXL Foundation, and they are an open source software suite. Basically, when you hear, like Sam revealed it in his interview too, was that the thing that is limiting people now is compute, and compute translates to chips. So the software suite that they're unveiling would allow it to run on any chips, right? So it's not a proprietary kind of direct stream. And the more chips that are produced, the faster the faster the innovations that they already know they can make will be able to be will be able to be realized. So I think we're just going to hear more and more chip news over the year. But this was nice. I'm not sure that it competes with NVIDIA's newly unveiled, like we did a really, really, really great one now, the Blackwell chip. But I do think the more distribution or the more diversity in sources of chips, the better for everybody.
Well, also, can you imagine if their software allows you to run like really efficiently any number of smaller models? All I want is like a Raspberry Pi cluster to run something like GPT-4. Like, it's like, oh, I don't have enough power. Okay, well, let me plug in 5 more Raspberry Pis.
Right.
You know, and I just build out this thing, and that thing uses so little power, generates so little heat, because they're all like, you know, single board kind of devices. But I think I'm hoping it'll expand in that way. I'd love to see that.
Yeah,
I think that's got to be coming, right? I mean, that's it, you know, it seems like a natural progression to see things start coming out of like the Raspberry Pis, which has had a really interesting long run of different applications and stuff like that. One quick news story that I want to talk about is Google's generative search engine, which is or experience.
SGE, Search Generative Experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's the little, if you've used like Google Labs, they're starting to roll it out to more users. It's been around actually for months. A blog article I read said it like in the last month or so. I was like, no, I mean, I've had access to this now for months and months and months. But because it was part of their Google Labs. Anyway, it's the box that sort of shows up at the top of your Google search results. You may not have seen it before, but it's certainly rolling out. It's sort of what seems to be Google's attempt answer for how do you both give better perplexity style answers, if you will, at the top of a search engine result or a result of a search, and then how do you also still make sure you're holding on to ad and all the things that are important to Google. And so there was just a recent news article that said that somebody had really realized that the experience was in some cases pushing people towards malware sites that were, you know, you just want an iPhone, or you're infected, so you need to download McAfee, these kind of things. And so I didn't think that, I know is going to be a leap that all companies are going to have to jump over. What I found interesting was the comment in the blog was about what effect does this have though when it's presented back to the end user in a more natural, kinder, gentler tone. Does that make it more believable, which in effect makes those malware sites a little bit more dangerous? Because if you are just casually reading that result at the top of the page and saying, oh, that answers my question, and over time you feel comfortable with the types of answers it's giving you, and then all of a sudden one of them isn't quality, I could definitely see where not just, you know, people who aren't aware of scams and malware, but anybody could be sort of lured into a sense of comfort with the types of answers it's giving. And it's not that it's like giving you hallucinations, it's just giving you poor results. And then you would most likely click through because you have before. So I just thought it was really interesting. It's obviously something Google and other major companies are going to have to continue to contend with. So it'll be interesting to see what Google does as far as putting roadblocks, parameters to block out some of these low quality sites, so that when people do use this experience and they get used to it, they can feel confident that they're only getting the highest of quality results from it. And they also talked about, you know, we're going to see a lot of it, right? Which is these huge SEO pushes and these like huge, you know, black hat type things where people try to figure out how to bake in all the right stuff, all the right ingredients into the cake to make sure that it shows up in the top Google search engine experience. And they even mentioned that in an article because they said some of the malware ones were so similar in tone and voice that they can only assume that that's exactly what that was like a massive push. Somebody is trying to, you know, manipulate the SEO results, which that's been around forever. So that's nothing new. It's just we're now seeing it with AI results as well. So just thought it was an interesting topic. We're going to see a lot more of this. We talked just recently about malware, and this is just another arm of that. And how are the big companies going to combat that? I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everybody's been trying to game, like we already know Google's like everyone's trying to game Google. You have like all the organic search results. Some of it works, some of it doesn't, and I think this is why like this is a huge disruption where things like Perplexity, ChatGPT, even its own case Gemini does a better job without all the stuff that you're just trying to find something but there's
Mhm.
so much stuff around that you have to go through to get that information, and it's already hard. And then if you've got people trying to game things, and we've already seen it from their antitrust lawsuit, like during the transcripts, that they could tweak anything. So I can't trust a company that, yeah, your search generative experience, but are you tweaking it now to showcase like advertisers? And then is it actually truly generative, or is there baked in like advertising messages, which I was like, that's to me a big turnoff, because that's not, I don't want that. I want the information. So like, and if I have to pay $20 to ChatGPT or OpenAI to get that, I'll do that instead of stuff like all the stuff around it. So
yeah, and Sam kind of mentioned that on the podcast too. It was yesterday's topic, but I don't know if we mentioned this specifically, but he talked about how he liked the idea that he could trade money for what he felt like was better information that wasn't the ad experience. And they talked about visually what does the ad experience look like, and him and Lex were having conversations about that. But I get his point. Like, are we going to see, is the subscription model going to continue to move into this area of search and results? And in 2, 3, 5 years, it's just going to be very common for people to have a subscription to a Perplexity or something like that, that specifically, they feel like I'm trading this money for the result of not being swayed by ads, not seeing anything that's ad driven or whatever, the not Facebook model. Facebook was always famously free forever. Well, we now know it's not free. It's just how you define it, right? So it'll be interesting to see if there's going to be a big push for the general population, not just us, but the general user, to say, hey, you know what? It is worth $20 a month for Perplexity Pro for me to have all of this value, and know that I feel really confident that Perplexity is not being swayed by ad revenue and things like that. And there's a lot to be said for that. So it's
we're already kind of seeing that because I subscribe to YouTube Premium, and it's the greatest thing ever. Because
without the ads.
Yeah, completely without the ads. I don't know why my screen's totally
I mean,
off.
if I have to see the Backstreet Boys, Downy, Wrinkle, Refresh, whatever commercial, the only thing with YouTube is that whatever you're locked into, forget about it. They paid for the month, and you're seeing it 1,000 times until you're like, please, anything else. And then the next ad is worse. You're like, actually, I'll take the Backstreet Boys. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to say anything bad about them. I will take that ad back. Yeah, I agree. All right, we're gonna wrap it up there. All sorts of news in this. I'm sorry, Jimmy. You have one more?
Yeah. I got one more, and it's in the theme of AI makes a positive contribution to the world theme. It's apropos that it comes from the Belgians. They're now using AI to improve the taste of beer.
Oh, I thought you were going to say chocolate.
I thought he was
going to say chocolate.
Well, yeah, that's the beer and chocolate. Yeah, that's true. But actually, that's all right. I won't digress. But check out German chocolate. It's pretty good. All right. So, and German beer. Oh man, maybe they're like they have conflict. I don't know. But sorry, I'll get back on point. But apparently, so they're using AI to with their data set. Was they took all of these reviews, identified all of these taste parameters and things like that, and they were able to create a model that would help determine and help devise or inform beer makers on what kind of elements will make their beer taste better. So maybe do process A instead of process B at this certain point, in your brewing process. So I thought that was pretty great. That AI can now help brewers improve their product, and I want to see what I want to get a report of who has implemented this into their process, and then do a taste by taste. Side-by-side comparison.
Okay, I have $1 million idea here. What you're talking about is a sort of an abandoned sense in the world of AI, which is taste. why can't we develop a system that can actually sense as our taste buds do, and then calibrate it with training so that it has cohort by cohort taste preferences and can evaluate the outputs of consumer packaged goods like beverages or, snack foods and so on, and, tweak them and say, all you have to do is add this little flavor note and it's going to be this much better for this large an audience. Okay, I'll leave it there.
No, that's a great idea. Then seasonal things can come out, so you can have your, you can have certain kinds of beverages that taste better because it's cold outside. Yes, I like
the
it.
hottest new robot coming is just a mouth
taster.
That's a
taster robot.
All right, take us out, Brian.
All I was going to say before that comment was that you were talking about beer, and I was just thinking, I'm not a wine drinker, but I was thinking like the $1 trillion wine industry, about notes and tones and all those things you were just saying, Andy. It just made me think of like all the wine people that I've always met in my life who would love to know that this was the perfect blend of the grapes up by you, Andy, and in the Northwest and blah, 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 and all that. So yeah, I'm sure AI will be a huge part of that. Okay, we'll wrap it up there. Come back tomorrow and hang out with us. Like I said, we're going to be talking about the evolutionary model merge. Really fascinating topic. That'll be tomorrow. And Friday, we're going to do more of a deep dive review of Claude and the 3 models that they came out with. Just came out in the news, actually could be as part of today's show, is they say now it's official that Claude Opus, so the paid version of it, has now beaten ChatGPT 4 based on 70,000 votes. I don't know if that was on GitHub or where that vote was done, but regardless, so that'll be really interesting for Friday. In the narrowest of margins, they're now saying that Claude Opus is the best performing language model out there, finally unseating GPT-4, which just means GPT-5 will be right around our corner because OpenAI is not. It's the narrowest of margins.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, that's it. We're out of here. Bye, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye. Aloha.